Good morning, Senate Agriculture back in action. We're going to spend some time with Salvation Farms with an update. We have Kelly Dolan and John Ramsey that are going to be with us today. Kelly, before we really get into it, or during the presentation, and you have a very great packet here, just scanning through it, very, very in depth. For the people that may be watching and don't understand who you are and what you do, at some point in time, whether it's the beginning or the end or during, if you could just do a great job of explaining how much you do, because it's just incredible seeing down through this packet. I want to make sure that everybody understands what Salvation Farm is all about. So
Yeah.
The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the opportunity to share today. We appreciate your time and everything that the Senate Ag Committee does on behalf of Vermont farms and communities. So I'm just going to share the screen really quickly here. So my name is Kelly Dolan. I'm the Executive Director of Salvation Farms. We're a nonprofit organization. We're based in Morrisville, Vermont, and I'm joined today by John Ramsey, the Executive Director of the Center for an Agricultural Economy. I'm here today to share a little bit about where Salvation Farms has been, where we're headed, and most importantly, why this moment matters. This presentation reflects years of partnership, learning, and listening across Vermont's food system, and a clear opportunity to build infrastructure that better services farms, communities, and the state as a whole. Today, I'll be providing a little bit of an overview of Salvation Farms, and then John and I will be discussing Salvation Farms and the Center for an Agricultural Economy's processing programs, and providing a status update on a renovation project. I'll also be sharing a funding request to support operations of Salvation Farms processing program that I'm hoping the committee will consider.
Are you in anywhere in a governor's budget or anywhere else?
Yes. Yeah. So we were in the House Ag budget memo. We didn't make it into the House's full budget, but we were included in the House's budget memo. And so, yes, and so the original request to them was $100,000, and they were included $50,000. We're incredibly appreciative of the funding that the state has provided to Salvation Farms for necessary infrastructure, and hoping that the Senate Committee on Agriculture will consider a $100,000 request for funding to support ongoing operations for our processing program. And as I mentioned, the House Ag Committee did include us at $50,000 their budget. So just to provide a little bit of an overview of Salvation Farms. So we work statewide at the intersection of farm viability and food access. Our role is to solve systemic challenges that individual farms or food programs can't solve alone. Specifically, what happens when good food has no market and communities struggle to access healthy, local food at the same time. At the heart of our work is the belief that a strong food system isn't just about food, it's about relationships that build towards thriving communities and farms. Our mission is rooted in connection, connecting farms to markets, surplus to need, and people to meaningful work. At its core, Salvation Farms exists to ensure that all Vermonters, regardless of income or personal background or individual circumstances, can access nutritious, local foods while farms are supported through a diversity of income streams. So what is surplus food? Well, according to Salvation Farms internal research, about 14.3 million pounds of vegetables and berries from Vermont farms end up as food loss each year. Surplus food is often misunderstood. This is not waste. It's high quality food grown from people that isn't reaching traditional markets due to forces outside of the farmer's control. It could be weather events, shifting contracts, or cosmetic standards. Without the right infrastructure, this food is lost. With the right systems, it becomes an asset that will contribute to Vermont's agricultural economy. We know that 1 in 4 Vermonters are accessing food from an institution or charitable program on a regular basis. The vast majority of that food is coming from out of state. And according to a 2022 UVM study, 2 in 5 Vermont residents had experienced food insecurity that year. Salvation Farms bridges the gap between existing resource on farms and eaters in need of food. So it's to provide a little bit of an overview of Salvation Farms and the work that we do. Our organization has moved more than 1.25 million pounds of surplus food from farms to Vermonters. The organization includes 3 program areas: our cleaning program, the Vermont Cleaning Collective, and the Salvation Farms Processing Program.
Can I interrupt for?
Oh, absolutely.
1.25 million pounds over how many years?
So we've been working for about 20 years. We were established as a nonprofit in 2012.
Still a lot.
Yeah. And so in terms of our cleaning program, this program uses volunteer labor to harvest food from farms and distribute that food to Vermonters in need. In a single year, we provide approximately 200,000 servings of food to about 10,000 Vermonters. Salvation Farms also leads the Vermont Cleaning Collective. This brings together 6 member organizations cleaning food from around the state. Through the collective, we're able to demonstrate the shared impact of cleaning in Vermont statewide. For the collective as a whole, this includes about 1,500 individual volunteers, about 400,000 pounds of food were recovered, over 200 partner farms, and 227 food distribution sites across the state. So to share a little bit about Salvation Farms Processing Program, this aims to create a market for farm surplus and prevents food from becoming waste and simply rotting in the field. In contrast to our cleaning program, which uses volunteer labor, this is establishing a paid market for that farm surplus. When surplus can't reach a market, Salvation Farms purchases this at a lower price point and in turn sells it to charitable food programs and institutions such as prisons and schools at a lower cost. Examples of our products include corn on the cob, mashed potatoes, and pureed squash. Over the past 2 years, we've been working together with the Center for an Agricultural Economy, renting kitchen space at the Vermont Food Venture Center, and partnering with their production staff, which has allowed us to focus on product development. This program is meant to address barriers to local food for charitable food programs and the most vulnerable within our state, including affordability. This program is able to make local food more accessible to charitable food programs that have been priced out of the market. Ready to use, so this product is offering prepped frozen products that save time and ease the burden for short-staffed kitchens. And in turn, this helps to support farms who are turning surplus into income instead of waste.
You answered one of my questions. I'm glad I waited. And Senator Major has taught me sometimes just shut up when it comes to but so that is the gist of a lot of what's going on. That the farmers aren't just doing. I'm not implying that they would anyways, but the farmers aren't just doing this out of the kindness of their hearts of picking the extra product, but there actually is a reward for them at a lower price point, but yet still some money's available for them.
Exactly, and with profit margins being so slim for farms, those small amount of dollars can make a significant difference. And Salvation Farms is meant to be reactive and responsive. So when an opportunity rises for a customer falling through, or there's a supply chain disruption, or whatever the case may be, that's when we're able to help to process that food and get it to the sale.
So you're getting calls at all different times, and not always the same call every year, but saying, hey, this is what's going on with us.
Right, and sometimes that's for our cleaning program where we'll send out volunteer labor, and we're certainly in the ramping up phases. So at this point, we're hoping to do 50,000 pounds in year 1. But yes, sort of meant to be reactive, where we'll reach out to farms. We have some really strong established relationships with farms, and we're able to respond when there is surplus. We also work with Deep Root Co-op as well that helps to aggregate some of this farm surplus. So it just provides a little bit of ease on our end for that. This just shows a little bit in terms of the process. How does the farm reach the market? So Salvation Farms would be purchasing that food from the farm. After that, that food would go to the Vermont Food Venture Center. And we would be contracting with Just Cut, so Center for an Agricultural Economies processing program to process that produce, and then selling that finished product to charitable programs and institutions, namely prisons and some. And that's some examples on the right-hand side of the finished product there. So just to speak a little bit about our partnership with the Department of Corrections. So in 2026, Salvation Farms received the Farm to Institution Market Development Grant from the Vermont Agency of Agriculture. This funding builds on earlier work from Farm to Institution of New England, which focused on understanding the barriers of getting local food into correctional facilities within Vermont. Salvation Farms is part of that effort, and now we're taking the next step. We're working closely with the DOC to apply the lessons that we learned to expand access to Vermont grown minimally processed vegetables using surplus food. Our product is intended to reach all 6 prisons across the state, providing 20,000 pounds minimally processed produce to roughly 1,600 incarcerated individuals and 600 DOC staff. It also builds on our longstanding relationship with the DOC, including past processing programs that happened at the Southeast State Correctional Facility. We're also helping to build brokering relationships between Vermont Farms and the DOC kitchen staff. They're often working with for a very limited time for farm outreach to be able to establish those relationships. And most importantly, we're doing this in a way that supports the cost per meal requirements of the DOC, which is only $2.20 per meal, so fairly restrictive in terms of what they're able to afford. So yeah, and as mentioned, so Salvation Farms and the Center for an Agricultural Economy are partnering on a shared renovation process. Originally the plan was to have a separate facility, so Salvation Farms having our own. We've had a longstanding partnership with CAE, and by working together, we're able to further our impact and also reduce redundancies within the food system and specifically within food processing. So we received the $500,000 appropriation from the state of Vermont in 2023. We received additional funding from the Northern Borders Regional Commission to support the infrastructure and renovation process. And John and I have been working together on operations, an operations agreement between the two organizations, determining how this partnership really works on the ground and what it looks like day to day. So, and so I'm going to pass it off to John Ramsey just to share a little bit more about the work that we've been doing.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Well, thank you all for just taking time this morning to meet with us, and I really appreciate that, Kelly. You invited me to join you in the presentation, so thank you for that. As you all know, Center for Agricultural Economy, we've been building a lot of infrastructure over the last couple of years, and one of the real through lines of that is that this is shared infrastructure. Not only is infrastructure that benefits the programs that we operate directly, but also partners, producers. You mentioned Deep Root Organic Co-op. We've really been sort of building infrastructure that is shared infrastructure that's going to benefit our businesses, our farms, and our communities. And this is another evolution in that step. So after the new food hub was able to be constructed at the end of last year, some space that had been previously occupied by Jasper Hill at the Food Venture Center opened up. And we've been sort of thinking, okay, we're going to move our processing program into that space. And, after, we've been in conversation for, several months now, and sort of, coming around to, okay, well, how could these two programs really work together? And can we, invest in one facility that would be, more fully utilized, and more fully, creating a larger benefit to the producers and the purchasers of the food that we provide access to. So right now, that space is essentially vacant. So we've got some temporary pallet racking in there and a temporary cooler. We just had an inspection by the fire marshal. They said this looks like a good project. We also had an inspection by the health inspector from Vermont. They said from a food safety standpoint, this allows us to yet again sort of reach a higher level of food safety because the produce processing would be in a dedicated space in the building, whereas right now it is in a space that right adjacent to the kitchen where the processing is happening, other production is happening, sometimes with allergens and other things. So the health department thought this was also a really good move for the programs to have a more dedicated space. I would also just say a lot of this work, the electrical, the plumbing, the floors, floor drains, these are things that we've already taken on and done in the Food Venture Center. This for us is this is going to be a scope of work between now and August to get done, but we've got great relationships with plumbers and electricians, and we have an ability essentially be our own general contractor, which saves a lot of time, a lot of money. And so Center for Agricultural Economy is sort of taking that role a little bit in this project, is sort of the physical, the renovation part. And as Kelly said, we've made a lot of progress in terms of the operating agreement, working out some of what the price structure is going to be in terms of what they would pay, for us to do the processing. And it's a lot to work through up front, but I think it's better to work through all the details and get it right, sort of as best you can up front. So we've actually been working on this for 6 or 8 months now, or maybe not quite that long, but certainly since the very end of last year, very beginning of this year, really sort of put a lot of work into that.
And that basically is somebody can come in and use the processing center individually. Like say I got I'm a big gardener.
Yep.
And I got a lot of leftover. I can call, rent the space to wash, process.
Not exactly. So right now we have 3 kitchens.
Yep.
2 of which
Yep.
what you're describing, folks would have access to. So we would move our processing out of the current kitchen, the 3rd kitchen. So that would free up a 3rd kitchen for folks like you were just describing to come in. But the processing is going to be in a dedicated space done by staff only because of the level of equipment and investment that we're talking about. So this is really where we're trying to go with this, is specialization, efficiency, scaling, volume. And so somebody coming in who's not experienced with the sort of the level of equipment that we're talking about investing in.
Just selling my product.
Exactly. So yeah.
How many farms are you working with?
If you go to the next slide. So our processing program is called Just Cut, and we're working with roughly 20 farms, and we're sourcing around 170,000 pounds of produce a year, plus or minus. We have really spent a lot of time working with some of our larger institutions, healthcare, UVM dining, Norwich University, Champlain College. They take scale and volume, and that allows us to work with a lot of K through 12 schools, which aren't in a position often to take a lot of volume. So when we're doing a processing run of 1,000 pounds of potatoes for UVM, we can sort of add in additional orders for K through 12 schools much easier if we're able to sort of do some larger processing runs. So we have really spent a lot of time developing those relationships with higher education and healthcare, as well as several K through 12 schools. Our approach to the raw product supply is what we call a good faith agreement. So we're essentially signing an agreement with the farm up front at the beginning of the year, where we're saying, okay, if you grow 40,000 pounds of carrots from, we'll buy it from you at this price point, and we sort of agree on, how that product. We generally pick that product up at the farm and then get it there ourselves. We're also in the development of some new products. So we're working with another college on a kale product. Right now, we primarily work with root crops. They store well, they grow well, but there are some other products that are in development that we're working on right now. And right now we're able to cover a little bit more than 65% of our operating costs through the earned revenue sales of that produce.
And I'm sorry, and these are farms throughout the state, or
yes,
more centralized in a.
No, we have NEK, Upper Valley, Champlain Valley, folks down in even down in Rutland, the Old Woods Market Garden Farm. Yes, yeah, sorry. Well, from a geography standpoint, but, we try to, but that allows, I mean, we're, snow just left up where we are, and so there's other parts of the state which are ahead of us from a season standpoint.
It's a lot of carrots.
Yes, yes, so,
Yeah.
yes, we're going through a lot of volume and also, we have these ebbs and flows in our production. Especially around the academic year and especially during, we just went through spring break. And we're seeing an opportunity where in some of those ebbs and flows, we could be processing for Salvation Farms. So again, like this is an opportunity where both programs benefit, and it sort of evens out, some of the work schedule. And we've been working on some different products, and some of the products that Salvation Farms working on a little bit different than some of the products that we do. And again, like this is all like in development, and year one is going to really inform a lot of how year two looks like. But we have been doing work with Salvation Farms, as Kelly said, in some of these lulls. So we did a big one just recently. We did some over right at the beginning of the year and the holiday season. So we've been dipping our toe in the water and testing this. So they've been operating, and then we've been operating. So we have something to build from at least. We've got some trial and error done.
So I know the space you're talking about.
Yes.
What I can't picture in my brain are where your three kitchens are. Are there 1, 2, and 3 all aligned right there?
Yep.
I'm just missing one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. 1, 2, and 3. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then in the back corner is where Jasper Hill had their cheese inventory.
Right. Yeah, I know where that.
And so they moved out of that, and then they're also this renovation, I'll just say, is actually quite extensive. Jasper Hill is putting about oh yeah, sure. Jasper Hill is putting about 1.5 million of their own money into renovating the Food Venture Center space that they will continue to use and process.
So even though they probably are looking to expand where they're at, it's actually on the actual farm and all that stuff, this relationship with them has worked well enough where they want to stay around.
Yeah.
Because they've been a great anchor for you.
Yes, exactly. So they're increasing their cheese production. We're aiming to increase our produce processing production, and it opens up a third kitchen to rent to, food business entrepreneurs, farmers. So there's a lot of multiple benefits. And then again, going back to that, creating facilities that are shared use facilities that multiple parties benefit from is always part of our thought process and our approach to things. And this gives you a little bit of a before and after. So on the left is, in the gray, is the current footprint that we're utilizing for our programs. And the sort of white hashed area is the current footprint that Jasper Hill had been leasing to us for their storage and their creamery. And you can sort of see on the right-hand side, we have essentially squared off the building a little bit in terms of how it's being divided up. And we will have a net gain of a little over 1,200 square feet. Again, that allows us to do cooler freezer reconfiguration, add a fourth larger kitchen for produce processing, and again, free up essentially that middle kitchen, which is the one, I guess it's harder to see on the screen here, but on the top there.
Slide breaks down the.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So the raw kitchen will become now a multi-purpose kitchen with cooking elements and the ability to be used by other food business entrepreneurs. And then over in the upper left corner, you see the new kitchen that says produce, new produce kitchen, new freezer cooler. And again, that will allow for better food safety compliance and higher level of food safety audit, as well as a better flow of product in and out of the kitchen. So,
Hey, Kelly, where do you guys produce now? You must have a facility that you're doing.
So we actually rent space from the Center for an Agricultural Economy, and are contracting with their staff to provide processing support. Yeah, we have some of our staff that also helps to do some of the processing, so we work together at the Vermont.
Well, I would say, John, that your building's gonna get too small pretty quick.
That's.
If you guys ever have a chance to go, if you ever have a chance to go through Hardwick, you gotta stop in. Advance notice would be great, but to see what they're doing in the middle of nowhere is pretty impressive. And it really is.
Don't you have the Ford dealership across the?
Yeah, more dealers across the road, and everything. It is very, very impressive.
Yeah. But this idea that we're building things that multiple parties benefit from really is a guiding sort of value for us. And, it's not just about our programs, it's about partners. As you know, we also do a lot of work with Green Mountain Farm to School. And so, finding ways in which there are a lot of different benefits for our communities and farmers is definitely an approach that we take to these projects.
Has the demand for the kitchens increased as people get to know about it? Or is it still kind of getting legs?
Well, we went through a big drop in usage during the pandemic. And since then we've been sort of rebounding, and I would say we're right about plateauing. And part of that is capacity, part of it is equipment. There's some specific pieces of equipment that we want to add in this new rentable kitchen that would attract additional producers. So yes, we both see opportunities, but also we're currently turning some folks away because we're not quite set up for what they need. So.
Well, let's go down to some more numbers. You have some more numbers here. Diversifying Salvation Farms funding is that. So.
Yeah, so I mentioned before that we did receive this appropriation for the state of Vermont, and those funds are being utilized to support the construction at the Vermont Food Venture Center. We also received funding from the Northern Borders Regional Commission or Catalyst program, and that funding is going to be put towards equipment costs. So really that is supporting the infrastructure that's necessary to be able to allow both programs to ramp up our processing. And then in terms of operations, looking forward, once we're able and actually up and running, we did receive, I mentioned that Farm to Institution Market Development Grant. That's a 2-year grant, just below $30,000 to help with the DOC. We anticipate about $125,000 in revenue in year 1. And so certainly there's the need to ensure that we have additional funding in place, especially at the start of the program, thinking about how we're going to be launching, ensuring that we're successful getting Salvation Farms and the early phases of our processing off the ground. And so this is the reason and rationale behind this funding request. Really in terms of the partners that we've lined up, we're aiming to support the most vulnerable within our state, focused really on supporting charitable food programs. We're planning to start working with the Vermont Food Bank in 2027 as a committed buyer. Meals on Wheels programs as well. So I think Ken Lipinski came to present last year and talked a little bit about that partnership. And again, the DOC, understanding that this is an example of a market that's working with highly restrictive budgets, but still, deserves to have the ability to access high quality food. So we know that our expenses in year 1, in terms of the business planning that we're working with, we anticipate them to be about $325,000. And so, we're working right now to really plan for the future and ensure that our program has the adequate funding to ensure that we are able to get off the ground and be successful.
So do you own the building or rent the building?
The Center for Agricultural Economy owns this building.
Yeah, and so just to name again this request that we have in place, we know that we weren't included in the larger House budget, but asking the Senate Ag Committee to see if you would consider being a champion of this request, helping Salvation Farms to be successful, but above and beyond that, help to support farms with additional revenue, and help to ensure that some of the most vulnerable in our state have access to food.
How big is Salvation Farms? How many people are you surrounded with?
In terms of our staff?
Yeah, your network.
Yeah. So in terms of the people that we feed, it's about 10,000 people. We partnered this past year with 34 farms. We distributed food to 76 food distribution sites. So that includes food shelves, it includes WIC programs, Head Start programs. Our staff is pretty small. We're about we are 6 people. We work over the course of the year with 150 volunteers. So,
How are you distributing your food?
so we have 2 F-150 pickup trucks that we use for food delivery for the gleaning program. And we're not intending to do any of the distribution ourselves. So for for our processing program, we're already working with Farm Connects to help with food distribution. And then with the Vermont Food Bank, they have their own distribution trucks. So partnering with distributors as opposed to having Salvation Farms do the distribution ourselves.
Well, I think it's worthy. I think you're partnered with a good organization. I think a lot of John. I think he's done a fantastic job throughout the state, certainly in the area where his buildings are located as well. He goes all the way to Rutland, I hear.
Ram today.
But yeah, I think we could champion that. Speaking for myself, but we'll talk. The committee will talk. But we like what you do. So yeah.
As you know, money's tight. So.
Yeah. Definitely understand that and just appreciative of the support. It makes a world of difference and means a lot to us. And just really appreciate the time. And we know we'll do a good job and make sure that any funding that's required.
I think the thing, I'm very proud of this committee. I think the first time I told them that.
Yeah.
But
It is April Fool's.
yeah, it's very true. But I'm we are very much about supporting the smallest of the small as much as the big is the big and everywhere in between. So we'll advocate for sure. So thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you guys for
Thank you
coming
very
in.
much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate you very much.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, committee, we can either power through. First of all, I apologize. Have you told us everything you want to tell us?
I think so, unless John has anything else from you, share.
Not at the moment, but yeah, thank you again for your time and all your support for all the things in Vermont Ag. And I know there was just a conversation about working lands funding and everything you're, working through. And I know you're kind of getting into the long end of the session here. So thanks for sticking with everything that comes in front of you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
And you guys as well.
Yeah.
Really, we can power through and start a few minutes early with Steve, or do you want a few minute break? What do you want to do? Okay, Steve, are you ready?
I am, but I'm easier to tolerate with a break.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Committee, we're gonna spend some time with Steve Collier, attorney for HU Agriculture. And we're just gonna have a little bit of a walkthrough. I gotta get out the April Fool's one. And we're gonna have a few minutes to spend on 739. There are acts relating to prohibited the use and sale of the herbicide paraquat. And also 942 should be the act relating to miscellaneous agriculture are subject. All those bills that come over from our House counterparts. So we're going to spend some time, as you guys are very well aware, on the paraquat issue on Friday. But I thought it was very important after our brief summaries of going down through it yesterday that we bring in the agency so they can tell us what they'd like us to know about that. So sort of the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Steve Collier from the Agency of Agriculture. It's great to see you all. In honor of April Fool's Day, and also because our wonderful executive assistant is currently attending to her dad's funeral in New York, and I'd like to give her a chuckle. Would you mind if I give a couple of
No,
jokes
please
that-
do. Please do.
So there's this cartoon character, Steve the Otter, and I never heard of him before Terry, but Terry likes to put cartoons on my door from him. And there's a couple that fit me pretty well. And one of them is that, and this is Steve the Otter, and this is, it turns out, and this is true, that I'm not getting any smarter as I get older. I'm just running out of stupid things to do. And the other more recent addition that she's put up there is that, and this has become my new motto. And it sort of has always fit me. I just didn't know it, is that they can't outsmart you if you're not smart.
It seems to fit us, Steve.
Well, thank you for giving me that latitude. Hopefully it'll cheer her up a bit. So I was going to talk about the housekeeping bill first, just because I think Steve, is that okay? Just
So whatever you'd like to do, floor is yours.
okay, great, thanks. So all of the proposals in H 942, I have paper copies if anybody wants one, but
It's also on here.
Yeah, we got it on our webpage. I think we're good.
okay. So they're all three of the proposals that the House passed were our proposals, so we supported them all. Worked with the committee on them. And I'll just give you a brief overview of each one and then quickly run through the languages. That's okay. So the first one, section 1, it relates to agricultural water quality training. And so the backdrop here is that in 2015, when the Vermont's Water Quality Act was passed, Act 64, 2015, there were very wide sweeping changes in what farmers are required to do to protect water quality. So part of the statutory change included mandatory training for all farmers, and we had to prescribe that by rule. And so the law was passed in 2015, and both 2016 and 2018, we amended the required agricultural practices. And ever since that time, there's been a mandatory 4-hour water quality training for farmers every 5 years. And that training requirement is not particularly onerous in and of itself, but the reason for it was to make sure that everybody understood what the RAPs are and that they were complying with them. And over the course of the last 8 or 9 years, whatever it's been, we've had more than 32,000 attendees at the water quality trainings, and we've hosted or paid for more than 1,000 events. And we always want to lead by training, so we don't want to back away from water quality training in any way. But we feel like sort of the rudimentary requirements of the RAPs are no longer necessary to be trained. And also it's really administratively burdensome to keep track for all farmers who are subject to the rule, whether or not they've done their 4 hours in 5 years. So what we want to do and what the House agreed to do was to take away the that we shall do this and instead make it a may. And there's a couple of pieces to that. One is we want to expand the scope of what we're training on. We'd like to get beyond the basics and try to move toward best practices. So we propose changing the statute. So we're doing more than the basics and helping people learn how to do even better things. And then the other piece of that is if mostly farmers understand the rule, mostly they're complying. But if someone is not complying, you do want to retain the authority to require those people to conduct training either as part of their permit or just on a case-by-case basis. So basically that's the overview, and I can quickly run through the language if you want. Do you want me to go through the language or not?
What do you guys think?
No,
Pretty much.
it's covered everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're pretty much going
Yeah.
on to that, okay, farmers, this is the basics of what you guys should know. We want to up our game a little bit.
We want to continue the training, and it will continue to be free, and will continue to enable us to hire people at UVM and the conservation districts to do it. But yes, we want to focus on, okay, you're meeting the minimums, but how can you do even better? Not that you have to, but how can you do better? Because it's better for the farm, it's better for water quality. So yes, we want to be able to focus on better improvements.
So, changing it from the shall to the may, is there a downside to that? I mean, now you may get some farmers that won't go through the training. Sure.
I think there's a potential downside if people don't know about the rules, but if we counter that, then we can require it. So it's right now we just view it as kind of administrative, like you're just requiring somebody to attend 4 hours over 5 years, keeping track if you went to 1 hour here, 2 hours here, and administering that. Like it just doesn't feel like an effective use of our time or for farmers. But the downside would be if there's no training, people are violating the rules. That's why we want to continue to have the ability that if you're not following the rules and we feel like you don't know how to, we can say you must attend this training, which will still be. Okay. So I think it's pretty well covered. The other thing I should mention is that We did consult with A&R about this, and the House Ag Committee did, and they were fine deferring to our preferences on this issue, so there's no disagreement there. So, and for that one?
Yeah.
Good. Great. I love how this committee doesn't really necessarily like me to read them language. We're not particularly good at it.
We are in the Senate, we're not the House.
Everybody himself.
Well, that's
Good.
perfect. So section 2, this one's an interesting one. The language changes are pretty minimal, but because we have one landfill in the state, and because of all the laws that require basically to put as little in the landfill as possible, there's a lot more potentially contaminated materials going to farms. And so we currently, before this proposed change, have the ability to have some regulation over things that are being deposited in manure pits and digesters. So, but we do not have authority over materials that are spread in the fields. And so ANR regulates that material, and there can be some materials that have nutrients and can be beneficial to farms in the fields, but some of those materials may also have a lot of other things like microplastics or PFAS or heavy metals or other things that are not part of the analysis in determining whether they should be placed where we put our food. So we worked with ANR to try what we wanted to do, and this language does it, is to expand the scope so that ANR will continue to have exclusive authority over what it regulates and what's coming out of solid waste facilities and what can be spread on fields. But we would have the ability, before somebody brings those things to a farm field, to ask not only what it is, which we can already do if it's going in a pit or digester, but not a field, but we can ask for laboratory test results for specific contaminants of concern. And then we can decide whether or not that's harmful to the farm. And before, the whole impetus was looking at water quality alone, and we've expanded that scope so we can be looking at human health, environment, soil health, plant health, so that it is encompassing things like, and this is a real, there are several states around the country that have had their farms have been heavily impacted by different kinds of PFAS. And that's just one of the many examples of things that if you don't know it's there and you're getting a tipping fee to take it and you're spreading it on your land, you may actually be ruining your soil. Right. And nobody wants that, including the farmers, but if they don't know what's in it, that can be a real problem. So it's just trying to provide an extra layer, plug a gap essentially, that, these materials may be beneficial if they have nutrients, but if they have other things that are going to harm your farm, it would give us the ability to demand some information before approving that. But if it is acceptable for farm use, it can still come to the farm and still be used. And so that's the goal of this.
Yeah, I can tell you as chair and as for the committee, we're going to be looking at some testimony on this as far as the sludge that gets spread and stuff like that. What's already happening and what do we need to watch out for? So we're going to need a little education on this. And so we'll be looking for you as some witness lists as we'll chat with Linda as well. I want to spend a little bit more time on this so we can be knowledgeable. I am aware of the Maine situation where it just basically ruined the soils on that farm up there, and I want to spend some attention on this.
Yeah, and we have I'm not the expert on this, but we do have a toxicologist and we have some other people who are very knowledgeable about this. And I would suggest probably if you want to learn about it, it'd be both from us and ANR, because we have kind of corollary roles. The good news about the Maine situation is not good at all for Maine. But the differentiated from Vermont, is my understanding is most of that was from paper sludge. It was from the paper industry. So there was a known source of contamination for that. We're not aware, there's PFAS everywhere, but we're not aware. And there's been some instances in Vermont, including Bennington, that have been, very problematic, but we're not aware of a specific source that's coming to farms, but we don't know, we don't know.
Right.
And there are a lot of materials that get spread on farms, including some of this stuff and also even some fertilizers and other things. It is a concern that warrants some.
We'll spend some time on this second.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just let everybody be aware of that. If anybody else got any comment on that, feel free.
As for this language that we propose in the House passed, both ANR and our agency are supportive of it and do think it will help. That doesn't mean that more to be done, but we're trying to be very careful not to step in any way on A&R's authority, but also make sure that once it's coming to a farm, we can take that next step and make sure that it should be coming to a farm.
Questions on section two? Okay, very good to move on.
Yes, sir.
Great.
Okay. So the next one is, starts with section 3. And it's unit and retail pricing. So unit pricing is the actual, when you see on a product, the amount that something is by weight or measure, so by pound or by ounce. So if you're looking, and it's probably the most helpful thing, especially in a grocery store for consumers who are trying to save money, to be able to evaluate what something is. I know when I go buy an ice cream, I now need 2 cartons because they keep shrinking them. So one's not going to do it. But it's a way to check different size bottles, different size packages. If you fill up a bag of chips that's half full, you can look at the unit price and see what you're actually getting. So it's a really important consumer protection information for folks who want to know what the best deal is. Our law was written back in 1971 and has only been sort of very roughly amended since then. Our rule is also very old, and it just doesn't make very much sense right now, the way the unit pricing rule is written. So the principal goal here is to modernize our language, which is good for retailers because it makes it more consistent along state lines. We're adopting something from the National Conference on Weights and Measures, which puts out model guidelines, which we implement all in our weights and measures department in many areas, but it was not specifically incorporated for unit pricing. So most of this is just about trying to update our law so that it's easy to interpret and implement. There's another piece though, which is reflecting a new change with electronic shelf labels. So some stores are starting, instead of putting paper tags on the shelf, they're starting to use electronic shelf labels, which is actually can be great because a lot of the price discrepancies you see at the register is when the system is updated differently than the shelf labels, which can causes a lot of problems, and it's difficult to do them simultaneously. With the electronic shelf tags, you can do it all at once. So even if the price was a mistake, at least what you read on the shelf is still going to be what you pay, which is a good thing. But the challenge to electronic shelf labels is you could do something called dynamic pricing, where you can automatically change the prices based on demand. Like, as an example, during lunch hour, you could jack up your prices, or dinner time, or whenever you expect the demand to be higher, you could jack up the prices, we don't regulate that per se. We don't regulate what people charge. What we demand is that what they say they're going to charge is actually what they charge. But what we don't want to happen is for someone to take something off the shelf thinking it's $1 and get to the register and pay $2. And that can happen if you're changing the prices while people are in the store. So we added definitions for electronic shelf labels and also for dynamic pricing. And what we proposed and the House agreed with was that you can have electronic shelf labels are fine and you can use them, but you cannot change the price while the store is open. So you'd have to wait till the end of a business day to change the
What
price.
happens if you got like a price shopper that's 24 hours a day?
That's a great question. I didn't consider that.
Okay.
Look at you, Steve.
Yeah, there it is. See, it's back to Steve the Otter. You can't outsmart you, not smart. I didn't think about that, and maybe we need to put something in there that says if you're open 24 hours a day, you do it at 1 a.m. or something like that, or there is a caveat in there for if you can correct an error, but you have to notify the customers that you're doing that. So
Does this section at all mandate that a store must? I mean, just kind of looking down through it and doing the 30,000 foot overview. And from what I've heard about this section, that it was telling mom and pops, mini marts that they had to go to unit pricing.
So currently under the law, there's an exemption that we didn't change, or it's not changed in this bill for any single store. So if you're a single store with less than 7,000 square feet, I have no idea where that number came from because that's big. it's not a mom and pop store, but if you have one store of 7,000 square feet or less, you don't have to have unit pricing.
Okay.
Everybody else does, and that's the same as it has been. However, we shared this language before proposing it with the Vermont Retail Grocer Association. They're fine with everything. I actually not. Stewart's is a convenience store group that just bought Jiffy. So they have quite a few stores in Vermont right now. And we talked to them, and they do not want unit pricing to apply to convenience or any of their stores. And so they came into the house and asked for that. They testified with the Vermont Retail Grocers Association, but I wasn't in there and didn't listen. So I don't know if it was just Stewart's asking for it or if the Vermont Retail Grocers Association was asking for it. That would be something new. Convenience stores have never been exempt from unit pricing. They have an argument to make. It's different when you're buying 3 things than when you have a grocery cart full of things in terms of being able to price check at the register. Our position was we're not changing that. We think that it's reasonable for convenience stores to comply, but it's a legitimate, policy discussion.
Well, what is a legitimate argument for them for not wanting to do it?
Expense. I think they just, and that is kind of our position is that yes, there might be some first startup costs, but then once you have it, it shouldn't be too onerous. But to that, it is certainly an expense. And if you don't have electronic shelf tags, and I don't think any convenience stores do now, it is hard to keep up with the prices on the shelf, although you have to do that anyway for the sales price. So the question is, how much harder is the unit price? But we have talked to them about that. And what we said is, we're happy to agree to all the lead-in time that you need to bring in if you want to delay implementation of the unit pricing for a year or something like that. We just want to get the law right and be able, and sort of the catch though, every unit pricing has been required. We have not surveilled that. We do not do inspections for that. We're complaint based for unit pricing, for retail pricing, for accurate pricing. We do a lot of inspections. We'll stop by convenience stores, grocery stores, all types of stores to make sure their prices are right. We have not historically really had the capacity to do unit pricing scans, although if someone complains about it, we will go and we'll take action. And we do get some complaints. I don't remember since I've been here. I don't think we've gotten any complaints about a convenience store. We have got complaints with bakery stores. So we do enforce it, but not as thoroughly as we do with retail pricing.
So Steve, I'm trying to picture, because I haven't seen in a supermarket like Shaw's or wherever people shop, any electronic pricing yet.
I think Walmart.
Explain electronic pricing.
Yeah, it's just a shelf. It's a strip really on the shelf
Readout.
that's connected, I assume, by Wi-Fi. I'm not sure about that, but it's just showing the exact same the sale.
So it's actually a live, just like.
Yeah. I mean,
Kohl's, if you ever been into Kohl's, they have digital
They do?
readout of.
I've never seen it in a supermarket.
No, I haven't had either.
I haven't seen it in the supermarket yet either. I think Walmart is implementing it. I don't know if it's in Vermont stores yet, but it's going to become more and more common.
I could see that it would be expensive.
It is expensive. I think once and this doesn't require electronic shelf to go.
Oh,
This doesn't require it. This just says if you have.
okay.
We're not, we're not asking people to do it. We're just saying if you're going to do it, you've got to change prices at night. Or maybe maybe a little differently than that.
I got you.
So because you can, the price can be deceptive then to people who are taking off the shelf and suddenly they get there and the price has gone up and they don't look at the price and they don't know. So
So it's Stewart's now, and there's a number of those shops where I'm from, because it's a New York based.
yeah,
They can just say a bottle of Coke at such and such a price. They don't have to say per unit, this is how we figured out the price for you.
under the law, they're supposed to have a unit price currently.
And that's all
Print,
true.
you don't.
Maybe I just don't notice.
Well, they may not be doing it either. I'm not sure. They're supposed to, but as mentioned, we have not been actively enforcing it. And part of the reason we want to correct this law, it's poorly written right now. It's hard to enforce. It's hard to understand. So it should be clarified so people better understand exactly what they're required to do. Like right now for unit pricing, it lists a bunch of commodities instead of just kind of covering everything. It lists like aluminum foil. And then we have a rule that also, it's supposed to be things that you buy and they use at the house. It's not supposed to cover everything, but it's consumer commodities, which is defined in here and better defined than it was.
I could see it for meat, so much a pound kind of thing. But I'm not sure a consumer would be any more informed with a can of soda than, I mean,
Chips are good, that you go up and
yeah,
and you
Yeah.
look,
yeah.
$6.99 for the bag, you look, it's 5 ounces.
Yeah.
And then it's $6.99 for a 10-ounce bag.
I get it.
Unit price.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should pay.
Okay.
Say I tell my wife that every grocery store. Look at the unit.
She can watch this.
Yeah.
Great man, effort. Awful great. There's another honor moment.
If he's not here tomorrow, you'll.
We'll be looking for him in section 2, the waste pit.
Yeah. Notice how I do this.
Okay, I guess I'm.
Okay, so are we good with section 3 for now for the overviews of where we're at? And I think that just gets it to the end of the bill.
If you want to talk to we have a couple of experts who can
We'll
answer every question you have in the world
we'll
about that
be,
if you want
spend
to.
a little time on that one as well.
Yeah. But it's, I think the only issue anyone has raised is whether or not convenience stores should be subject to unit price. They are currently, this would include them, at least stewards would prefer they're not.
Well, if we got others in that might echo that, maybe pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Or at least assess, what are the actual costs and what are the benefits, are there? One of the things that we thought about is there are, some people go into a convenience store just for a Coke. But there's also some places where the only thing around is a dollar store, or the only thing around is a convenience store, and some people do their actual shopping at those stores. So for those folks, maybe looking at the bread and seeing which is a better deal might have some real utility. Or even a bag of garbage bags. You get a big box with 5 bags in it, but you get a smaller box with 30. Can't necessarily tell that easily
Yeah.
without reading the label or looking at the unit price. So there are some, there are definitely some consumer advantages. It's true, it's different when you're buying few items versus when you're buying 300, but yeah. So that's it for that.
Okay, on to the next.
Okay, so H739 Paraquat.
Yeah.
So Steve Dwinell, who's the director of our plant industry division, will be in on Friday. He can answer a lot more technical questions than I can on this, but we worked closely with the House Ag Committee on this bill. We never took a position on it. We're neutral on it. For a lot of reasons, but it's the thing. What Paraquat is not very much used in Vermont. It is heavily used in some places. We do not have a lot of usage in Vermont. However, there are some fruit orchards that use it.
Yeah.
And apples. Yeah, apples, strawberry. I've heard fruit trees. Could be.
Well, we got one farmer that wants to come in and he says that it was very and I think it'll be on Friday. And he said it was very successful getting rid of the sister plant on the strawberries.
Okay.
So the suckers off of the main plant itself.
Okay.
So that's all that I know.
Okay. So we've heard that it is very helpful, especially for new trees and orchards when they're first planted and are growing.
Does it make it bitter for the deer?
Maybe. And its issue is not really an environmental concern, it's a human health concern.
Right.
So Paraquat is, if you ingest even a small amount of it, you die. And so it's a restricted use, and you have to be very careful with how you use it. It's the worker plus bystander sort of human health concerns are the driver for the concerns of it. The EPA has consistently registered it since I think 1964. The EPA was very comfortable. I mean, it's heavily regulated because of its danger. So it's much more regulated than most pesticides. But EPA has consistently supported it as a reasonable use. In 2024-5, I forget which now, the principal, Syngenta is the principal manufacturer. There's others, but they support some of the products. They they shared some information that suggests a higher level of volatilization that was known. And what that means is when you use it, it can become a gas more quickly than they thought. And so so that means it can also be inhaled more easily than thought. So that's sort of a human health concern. So EPA is going through more tests now based on that information, but that's going to take some time for them to decide, what, if anything, should be different about paraquat. But a big tipping point for us, at least in our thinking about it, is that Syngenta told us that they are going to stop supporting Gramoxone, which is their version of paraquat at the end of this year. So they're no longer going to register in Vermont, sell it in Vermont. They're not going to be supplying it in Vermont. There are some other 6 or 7 other companies that could. There's very limited use by those companies now. We don't know what they're going to do. They do currently register products, but
Of course, if there's a hole created, they could probably come in.
they may, but the EPA is also requesting a lot more information about paraquat because of that new information about the volatilization. And we're not sure whether those 6 or so Syngenta's pulling out, and we're not sure whether those other 6 or 7 companies are going to even try to justify use. They may not. But for us, again, we're neutral on the bill, but given what Syngenta said, and given the concerns, and given the ongoing EPA study, we thought that this bill was at least a reasonable position to take, and that you can continue using your stores, continue using paraquat until November 1, 2030. And the reason for November 1st is kind of to catch the season, so that, catch that growing season. And but it would have to be through a written permit issued by the agency, and the permit would specify what you can use it on, how you can use it on. So there is some, and also the Agricultural Innovation Board is tasked with studying what may be acceptable substitutes, so that we can provide, so the AIB can provide that information to farmers to sort of evaluate what else is out there. So it's a reasonable compromise approach. We're always very reluctant about bans, just because we don't want to take tools out of the toolbox. Farmers have to compete with everyone else. EPA is the expert on pesticides. We don't have the scientists to do the work. So if we're not relying on EPA, it's pretty tricky. And there's a lot of pressure always to ban pesticides, period. So we're nervous about the idea that you just start banning this, that, whether or not this, arguing that the science, it justifies it when the science is almost always at least contradictory. When EPA is charged with that, is saying it's safe. So it's a slippery slope, which is not the best reason not to do something, but we're cautious about the idea that you just start banning things which federally is allowed and everyone else can use. In this particular case, there are other herbicides that can be used. It is very dangerous to people if not used appropriately. And so I think it's a reason to measure, but we have not taken a position because we are generally concerned about bans. That we would rather have different approaches, but we didn't object to this either. We didn't go in and ask the House not to do this. And we do, it's very important that we have good relationships with both of our committees, and we know there are different interests and different concerns, and we do think it's a reasoned measure. So I don't know if you have any. Steve can answer a lot more.
I don't want to get into the full-blown testimony, but just a couple thoughts in my head. One is, do we know how many farmers in Vermont? Or do you know? We'll certainly find out on Friday.
We don't have a way of knowing that. Steve can tell you what we do have. There's companies have to report usage, and we do have.
We'd be curious about the usage amount as well. How many?
I think it's dealers actually that have to report it. So we don't. That doesn't mean we know which farmers are using it, but we do know, or we're supposed to know, how many gallons have been used.
Yeah.
And it has been limited, which is one of the reasons we're, again, not overly concerned. If it was in widespread use, that would raise more concerns for us. But there are some big orchards that use it, and think it's very effective. So I'm not trying to downplay the issue, but without Syngenta supporting it anymore, it seems likely that who knows what will happen, but there's probably change on the horizon.
Yes.
So for me, even a more fundamental question is, has there been a problem? In other words, we oftentimes in this building enact legislation if there's been an issue or a problem, and I haven't heard word one about this. How, and I don't expect you to talk policy, but I'm just, what brought about this sudden, the same thing I likened it to neonics. 3-4 years ago, all of a sudden was a big deal.
Yeah, and I would not like it to, I mean, it's the same issue with neonics, but I think this is known, paraquat is known to harm people, and it has, as I understand it, about 1 or 2 people a year mistakenly drink it. Because people put it in different containers around the farm and use it, so people put it in a drinking container, and 1 or 2 people die apparently a year. That's from the EPA's website, said that. People believe.
Is that country or state?
It's a country.
Okay.
Not Vermont, no. That, I'm not aware of anyone being lethally harmed by paraquat in Vermont from consumption. There are a lot of lawsuits all over the country. Many people think it causes Parkinson's.
Well, the Michael J. Fox Foundation is pushing it hard.
Yeah.
Folks in the room is, that representing them. So, concerns for that as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the EPA determined that it does not cause Parkinson's, but there's other science studies that say it does. And now the EPA is looking at the different volatilization rate, sort of reevaluating. Volatilization, the risk is it's drift, and then it can be potentially inhaled. So that's different than the direct contact. So there are a lot of lawsuits, and you're right about the foundation supporting this thing. So I think the same issue. Neonics was more of an environmental claim is human health concern, and neonics, the difference there too is it's on all of our seed or almost all of our seed. It's not organic, so it's a much more widespread issue.
Well, and I'll tell this committee what we've always done is I've told the folks that are representing the foundation and everything, we're going to take testimony on each side of this, and we're going to listen closely. And I do, I have sympathies for what Senator Collmore said about, what's the problem and all of that stuff. So I really do want to, I really do want to listen to this one closely, and I want to make what we would deem to be as a committee the right decision. So, so we'll be talking about this stuff as well. Great. I will ask this, and not to in any way disparage what the House has done for work. What else have they done? I mean, I'm getting a bill coming in, miscellaneous, exemptions for agriculture. I heard that's making its way across the floor now, or what have you, or
I think that has third reading today.
Third reading?
It's either yesterday or today. It's today. And that will be, yes, you'll be seeing the municipal exemption language.
Oh,
I certainly didn't pay attention to everything they were working on, but they had a rodenticide bill.
I think that one's not gonna make
They
it.
spent a lot of time on that one. That one did not pass. That was another sort of pesticide potential ban or restriction that would not pass. They worked on they had a minimum wage bill for farm workers. They spent quite a lot of time on. That didn't pass. They worked a lot on baby food issue, which I was not particularly paying close attention to because it wasn't really us. But that I don't think that they may have passed something on that, but I think it still had more committees to go to last night. Of it, so I'm not sure. And then funding recommendations. They did this. I'd like the committee to know this. So in the House budget and the big bill, that you all passed language to this committee to take away the LFO and MFO fees for farms, and then appropriations removed.
butchered it.
Yeah,
But I think in fairness, if I take the chair at his word, which I am willing to do, they only did that because they're going to discuss it further, and I really do expect that they'll probably end up supporting that, especially because the governor did.
Good.
But we shall see.
well, in the House version of the big bill, the money is there to replace the lost fees So we're hoping that the House Ag Committee will put your language back in
Right,
so that we can still have that language. So that's great if you can.
right. I do expect that we'll probably end up getting that across the finish line again. I'm taking the chair at his word, and I did ask him not only 1-to-1, but on the Senate floor in itself as well. So as we reported our bill out, so. Yeah. I have something else I was gonna ask and I forgot, but, I just want to, committee, let's pick our brains here a little bit, maybe tell Steve about some of the other things that, if we think that anything else that we're gonna add to the bill, some of the things that we've talked about that not a lot of people know. Current use, farm structures that did make the deadlines of their taxes, we're gonna spend some time with. We're gonna talk about current use for equine, some of the things as far as that. We have we're gonna spend a little time about tax exemptions for forest trucks, forest product trucking and trailers. We're gonna spend a little time on that. What am I missing, guys?
I don't think you should have.
Equine, you hit the equine.
Yeah, you did.
And you have tax department coming in.
Tax department coming in, we have A&R coming in as well. On various issues, a lot to do with bedside manner. Yeah, so, other than that, committee?
Okay.
No. Well, Senator Major wants to talk about some other stuff about stuff. I won't tee him up.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Committee, anything else, for, Steve the Otter? Okay, committee, everybody else in the room okay for right now? Okay. Unless there's any more, we'll go on.